The calendar may say April, but today is on pace to be more of winter than it is spring. So we're headed right away this morning to First Alert Storm Team meteorologist Lisa Green.
The Valley News Live First Alert Storm Team has issued a weather alert day.
We do have some tough weather conditions out there this morning to start off. We've been getting rain last night, another surge of it moving in this morning. And as temperatures are dropping, it's starting to get quite slick out there for many of us here in the valley. Here's a look at our roads for today. We're not looking at great conditions this morning, starting off okay in a couple of spots, but we are also seeing some areas of icing. So it's going to get worse as we progress through the day. That's why we've got some red lights there for you to indicate some tough conditions and tough travel, and maybe just stay home. Another good reason to stay home here. Here's a look at the latest DOT map. Right now in blue along I-29, that's where we've got wet roads at this point in time. But where you see the yellows on the map, that's where we're transitioning over to ice. And so we're looking at conditions that are quite icy up by Devil's Lake, transitioning back over to the eastern parts of Grand Forks County, and then down through Valley City. Looks like we've just added to that down to the state line there in parts of Ransom and Sargent counties and eastern Lemoore and Dickey counties here this morning. And same goes for Minnesota too, some icy patches on the roads. So lots of color on the radar map here this morning. Radar indicating all blue at this point in time. However, we have been seeing rain move through Fargo, even as it was looking like at least higher up in the atmosphere we had snow. This has been melting as it's been getting closer to the ground, and so we're seeing more rain, some sleet as well in some of those areas where we're getting the rain, and some freezing rain and icing happening. Glaze ice up in Grand Forks on one of our cameras there. I'll show you that coming up in a few minutes. Fargo, we've been seeing it too, so it's going to be slick on some of those windshields. We are going to have to do some scraping going on too, so hazardous conditions with that. Zooming in a little bit more, Fargo right on the edge of this line that's been lifting northward. We may get a little break unless we start to see this fill in a little bit more and impact us in the FM metro, but still seeing that rain, sleet, whatever it is that's going on right now as we're in the middle of that transition. Out to the west, same thing, seeing some mixed precipitation likely there. And it's warmer over to the east. We're seeing a few areas of rain, just straight up rain indicated from the ground and up. Now here's a look at those temperatures. You can see we're much milder to the east. Fargo now below freezing. So is Grand Forks in the upper 20s to around 30. And we're into the teens over in Devil's Lake. And eventually this all turns over to snow. We're going to talk about just how much we can expect and how this will be impacting you throughout the day today, coming up in just a few minutes.
All right. Thank you, Lisa. And we're continuing our team coverage of this wintry spring weather that we have right now with a live look at what it's like outside this morning. So we head out live to the Valley today's Abby Furchner. Good morning, Abby.
Good morning, Jordan. We're outside at the Moorhead Mall once again, that ramp area where that flooding is still taking place this morning. But on our way here, it was that like rainy ice mixture that Lisa's been talking about, and the wind was definitely a factor. But since we've been here outside of the mall, it has definitely died down a little bit. I almost feel like we're getting a little bit of a break. That wind, though, is still picking up right now. Actually, you can tell my umbrella is starting to shake once again, but that rain has kind of stopped for the time being and almost turned into snow. But I wanted you to take a look too at the river. Right now it's calm, but man, when we first got here, it was moving and the wind was definitely making some waves. And I want to remind you of a couple safety reminders as well. Just 6 inches of rushing water can take you off your feet, and 2 feet can move a car. So I know those barriers that might be the route you normally take, especially in those rural areas, but you're going to want to make sure that you're not trying to figure out ways around them, as those barriers are put in place for your safety. So when you're around the river, when you're around this flooding, make sure that you're taking the precautions necessary, because it's not something that you want to be messing around with. Thinking that you can drive through it is not the option. So just keep that in mind. Make sure you're not just breaking the rules for those barriers and trying to find another route if possible.
Some very good advice this morning. Abby Furchner, we'll check in with you a little bit later. Thank you very much. Homemade masks and other face coverings could soon become a more common sight as federal and state health officials consider expanding public guidance on face masks in response to the coronavirus. Minnesota State Health Commissioner said yesterday that a face mask is not a bad idea when out in public, like going to the grocery store. Rhonda Franklin is studying the effectiveness of homemade masks for the U of M's Institute for Engineering in Medicine. Now, she suggests using a layer of cotton and another layer of flannel or fleece, and make sure that they cover your nose and your mouth, and they loop around your ears, and that the mask is fairly tight. For now, CDC guidelines still say if you're not sick, you do not need to wear a face mask unless you're caring for someone who is sick. But the CDC's director says as many as 1 in 4 people who are infected show no signs of having the virus. State and federal leaders are putting emphasis on homemade options because they do not want to promote the purchase of medical-grade masks and other personal protective equipment that is currently in short supply for hospitals across the country. Police say a man who was arrested after coughing on a Moorhead grocery store employee does not have COVID-19. The guy is in jail after officers were called to the Cashwise yesterday. He claimed to have coronavirus and accused certain races of creating the pandemic. Then police say he threatened an officer on his way to jail, so now he's also facing charges of disorderly conduct and making terroristic threats. A Minot police officer and firefighter are both in isolation at their homes after they developed symptoms of the coronavirus. City officials say they were both exposed to people who recently returned from another state. Emergency dispatchers in many cities are asking people who call for help to let them know if they or anyone on the scene in the house might have symptoms of the coronavirus, so first responders can be warned about any possible exposure. More people are forced to stay at home with this pandemic, and that has some viewers reaching out to us with concerns about people living in unhealthy or unsafe situations. Valley News Team's Katie Opperly spoke with experts from the Rape and Abuse Crisis Center on how to make sure people are staying safe at home.
We do have concerns for children and adults who are in homes where there might not be adequate food or basic needs. There might be violence in the home. There might be ongoing psychological and emotional abuse.
Domestic abuse victims may feel torn between going out and risking getting sick or staying home and potentially being hurt.
Any time that we start confining people, if there's already violence established in that home, you can anticipate that it'll go up.
Johnson says even in a healthy home, tensions are high and people are on edge amid the pandemic. He recommends that people take a step back, remain patient with each other, and understand anxieties that others may have.
It really starts with, am I being patient? Am I being transparent with my kids? Am I helping enforce some of the guidance that we're all living under without being too demanding on the people around me?
Experts advise taking steps to help manage tensions at home, like take time away from others, think before you speak, have open communication, and don't hold a grudge. Johnson wants to remind anyone who may be experiencing a situation where they feel they need insight or help, the resources are still available.
For folks who are in a situation where they are being victimized, to know that they can reach out to those outside of that home, because the isolation is real and we start to feel like it's within those 4 walls, and to know that law enforcement is still very active, Rape and Abuse Crisis Center is still very active.
In Fargo, Katie Opperly, Valley News Live.
We have both Minnesota and North Dakota's 24-hour crisis hotline phone numbers online, and you can also find them on the VNL News app. Your next Costco run could be a little lonelier than you're used to. We'll explain ahead on the Valley today. But first, it is a First Alert Storm Team weather day. Lisa Green is in with what you need to know for this Thursday forecast.